Hey, it's Lucas, and it's that time again to judge footballers who are infinitely better than me. Every year, The Guardian releases The Next Generation, a showcase of some of the best players born in a specific year from all around the world. So far, we've done a 2014 and 2015 edition with those players born in 1997 and 98 respectively. They were put into a tier list, and the same will happen for those born in 1999. They'll be put into categories from S, which is the upper echelon of players, and it goes all the way down to fell off the face of the earth. Some of them are playing in the lower leagues of obscure leagues, others aren't even playing football at all, so it'll be interesting to see what happened to some of these players. So like always, it starts with Argentina, and they had two quite exciting prospects at the time, one with Ezequiel Barco and the other with Maximiliano Romero. Both were highly rated at the time, as we saw Barco make a £15 million move. You might think, oh, to Europe, maybe the Bundesliga, maybe the French league. No. MLS. It does sound a bit weird, but he did make a move to Atlanta United, where he's now starting to flourish after some rough seasons. Maximiliano Romero, on the other hand, made a $10 million move to PSV in 2018. He's had some challenges which required some loans to Velez, and unfortunately, he suffered some awful injuries. This includes a knee injury that has stalled his development. He just recovered from it, so hopefully he gets some more playing time soon. I'm putting both in B tier, with Barco getting the edge, mostly because he's getting more game time and has started to flourish. For the first time, we have an Armenian on the list, Vahan Bishakshian. While there are some interesting shouts comparing him to De Bruyne and Rooney, he is the youngest Armenian to score in Europe. While expectations for myself were quite low, he's actually performing quite well in the Slovakian League and the European Conference League qualifiers. While he may need to make a step up sooner rather than later, I did put him in B tier for the performances he's been having, and spoiler alert, there's not a lot of that. Australia's guy was Sebastian Pasquale from Melbourne Victory. He ended up getting a move to Ajax. It didn't work out there, and he's back in Australia with Western United. While reading over the article, I did glance over the fact that he did have a hip injury, but I initially thought it was a pubic injury. Unfortunately, that injury did put him out for almost a year, and he's now only starting to get minutes again. We'll put him in C tier. Valentino Müller appears for Austria, and while he is a dream signing for his current club WSG Tirol, it's not quite what was expected when he was at Lask a handful of seasons ago. Unfortunately, he couldn't get many matches there, but he is getting more matches now with his new team, but it's a solid C tier for me. Belgium had 3 guys on this list, which is tied with Brazil and Spain, so you think that'd be good company, but you just wait. During this period, Belgian players were developing it into a solid national team, and a lot was expected out of them. Then they got Cruyff turned by Robson Kanu, and their coach Wilmots wasted a great team. Success hasn't really come for Wilmots or these youth players since. Miles Villar was the highlight, as he became the youngest keeper to appear in the Champions League. While we won't talk about the blunder in that game, the reason I said he was the highlight is because he plays internationally for Serbia. He isn't playing much for Benfica at the moment, but not every keeper is going to be a starter at 22. Indy Boone was an attacking midfielder for Manchester United's academy. He ended up going back to Belgium for more game time, with some at Oostende, until he ruptured his Achilles tendon and is going to miss most of the season. Thibaut Verlinden hasn't fared much better, as he was at Stoke at probably the worst time. His real highlight was his loan spell at Bolton, where he scored 3 and assisted 3 in League 1. Now he's in Slovakia after a quick time in the Eredivisie. I had him originally in fall off the face of the earth, but that eventually changed to C. Now, starting this article off, you do read a bit of a description about what's going to happen, and you read something about a Bosnian Suarez. While Luis Suarez was dominating the Eredivisie at age 22, this guy's still on his way, but currently in the top flight of Croatia. I was probably a bit too harsh putting him in fall off the face of the earth, but I later put him in C tier. Now let me preface this, as not every player is going to be dominant at age 22. Some take age 24, 25, 26 to really get it going. However, that didn't change my expectations for Brazil. That soon changed when I didn't recognize any of the names. Luis Fernando started at the same club as Roberto Firmino, and like Bobby, he made a move to Europe pretty early on. Unfortunately for him, he moved to Fiorentina while not being able to get Italian citizenship. That meant no playing time, and an injury at Athletic Monero did not help. Suffered a serious injury in February, is currently trying to regain fitness, had more bad luck with injuries, and moved to Atletico Monero in March. Okay, not Atletico Monero, America Monero. Despite being in the top tier of Brazil at the moment, he's only played 1 professional match. So for the time being, he fell off the face of the earth. Fabrizio Oya has had some more luck with health, but he's had a weird trajectory so far. The former Corinthians man is now at, well, you can guess. You guessed Belarus? You were right! He's a Torpedo Zodino, and another cool thing about him, he has Japanese nationality. I initially put him in fall off the face of the earth, but I later changed that to C tier. Nicolas Royce Bernardo is the final Brazilian, and he started at Santos. I swear, if they mentioned Pele, Robinho, Neymar... Damn it! Every time there's a Brazilian or Santos player, they always put these names on here. Pele, Robinho, Neymar, Gabriel Barbosa. let me just show you the 2021 version. Yeah, right here. Angelo from Santos. Santos have a history of producing stars as the careers of Neymar, Robinho, Rodrigo. Unfortunately, it was a tough time for him at Santos and he really didn't develop. Now he's at Chaves in the second tier of Portugal and fell off the face of the earth on my tier list. While Brazil didn't have the best 1999 generation, I was hoping the tier list would be better than this. So we might as well go through each category of the tier list and start with the rest of the players who have fallen off the face of the earth. Again, I would love if all these players succeeded, but that's not how this sport is going to work. But I do hope that these guys have happiness, whether that's with football or in life in general. We got a guy from Thailand whose name is Siddharth Fazo. Unfortunately, he's currently struggling to get game time in the J2 League with FC Ryukyu after a year spent in the Thai League and the J3 League. Kim Young Min from South Korea had an early push in his career as he went to RB Salzburg's feeder club FC Liefering. They mentioned that he could fall under the footsteps of former Swansea City midfielder Ki. Unfortunately, he couldn't make a breakthrough at his parent club, and with moves to Guimarães and Gangwon not working out, he's currently in the second division of Korea with Busan Ipar. Unfortunately for the 2016 edition, the Asian nations don't have the best track record. After 5 years, Japanese striker Shunta Nakamura hasn't hit the heights expected, for one being 166 centimeters tall, but also is currently in the J3 League. One thing I can't talk crap about is that he pursued a dream. He was at a J-League club and left them for his high school team. Now in most countries, that'd be a confusing decision, but in Japan, there's a great footballing culture with their high schools, and Nakamura had a dream to play in the All Japan High School Tournament. This tournament is highly thought about in the country, and while he didn't win it, he did play in a game in front of 10,000 people, scoring a brace. A Bulgarian named Vladislav Zhikov spent 4 years at the Milan Academy, then he signed for AS Livorno right away. His team got promoted the next season, but he hadn't made his mark yet and failed to live up to expectations, and signed for third division side in Portugal, SC Alanense. Dropped down another few levels and is currently playing in the Italian 5th division and continues to play lower league football. What the hell happened? Playing for Volterrana, who doesn't even mention what division they are in. So now he's a real estate agent even though he's just 22 years old? I mean, fair enough. Finally having fun, and this is crucial. I've always considered football as a job, and this has caused me great suffering. Studied business economics, bought house in Pisa, rented it to students, and he's now taking a course to become a real estate agent. Fair enough. He says maybe he has a hint of regret, but he chose to feel good and not to suffer. So, I mean, at least the guy's happy. Sergey Aramenko. Is this the brother of the Aramenko who got done for cocaine? So he was at Basel and continued playing for Basel, then moved to Latvia in February 2018. I had a good year on loan in Finland, okay. Regular starter with Spartas, the team he moved to in Latvia in 2020, but is struggling to find a footballing home and is currently on loan to AC Ulu from Spartak. And he was at Orenburg in Russian second tier. Okay, yeah, this is just not going well at all. I mean, from a distance, that looks impressive. It looks like Spartak Moscow, but from close up, yeah, I think this guy fell off the face of the earth. In the grand scheme of things, realistically, he fell back to Finland, but I mean, he's still playing football. Plenty of time to regroup and become a solid player. There are 3 African players on this list. One from Ghana, one from South Africa, and one from the Ivory Coast. Samuel Mensah was the Ghanaian midfielder who currently plays for Club Athletico Progresso's B team. In 2020, there wasn't even an update about him. South Africa's Shungu Dutiro has struggled to get game time in the early parts of his career. He's currently at Mamelodi Sundowns reserve team, and he apparently fell off the radar at one point, and there's literally no stat details about him. Finally, we have Ivory Coast Gassou Neil Marceau. He came from one of the best African academies, ASEC Mimosas, but unfortunately, he's no longer playing football. Paula Medina sounds a little familiar. So he's a right back, speaks with a Spanish accent, and was part of Real Madrid, but he left Europe in 2018 and went to Monterrey. Then he moved again to a Spanish 3rd division side because he wants to improve and be a better player. It is a project that really interests me. Together, we want to take Logrono back where it belongs. What's their history? This club was founded in 2009. What history do they have? What? Oh, there's another Logrones. Okay, this one was founded in 1940. Okay, so it's a Phoenix club, you would say. Okay, so they were once in the 1st division of La Liga, but haven't been there since the late 80s, early 90s. We have Edwin Lara, another Mexican player. Born in California, used to play for the USA youth teams before switching to represent the country of his parents. Joined the San Diego Loyals, the new team co-owned and managed by Landon Donovan, which plays in the USL. Current update, changed the club name to San Diego 1904. Or is this a different team? San Diego 1904, the team founded in 2016 by Eden Hazard and Demba Ba and Johan Cabai. He's without a club, so it says he left in July. Nick Kaitage from the United States. Last name is pronounced Tatigli. So apparently this guy has very good technical ability for an American and was at trial at Schalke, getting closer to a first team position apparently. So he announced that he was going to have to retire from football because of a serious back injury. With a very sad heart, I write to you all today to announce my retirement from professional soccer. Oh wow, so here's a picture of him and Christian Pulisic. I mean, he's celebrating with him. He's obviously still loves the sport and loves the national team. It's a shame that this happened. Now, I know I've been saying words like unfortunately throughout a lot of this video, but that's how it's been going. 13 out of the 60 players in the bottom tier. Usually there's a lot more in the middle tiers, and that includes the C tier. We've seen a few names already, but here's my initial reaction to some of them. David Salazar from Chile. Le. Playing characteristics are similar to Alexis Sanchez. Plays an attacking midfielder in a variety of positions. Club is O'Higgins. Sounds like it's a club in the Irish division. He moved from O'Higgins to Deportes Santa Cruz in 2020. On a loan move, okay. And now his current update is he's spending another season on loan, except in a different club in the Chilean second division. So he's still got first team appearances at his club, but then one on loan to get some more minutes. I'll put him in C. Okay, we got a guy from China named Shan Huan. He made his debut in the Chinese Super League thanks to Alberto Zaccaroni, former Japanese manager, I'm pretty sure. Powerful, good in the air, not afraid to shoot. So he left his club in 2017 for family reasons. Moved to Vitoria Guimarães in B in the country's second tier. So he left his club for family reasons, then goes to Portugal? What? Came back to China to join Rafa Benitez's Dalian Yifeng, and then he became a regular starter but is struggling to score. Not surprising given the team are bottom of the league. I mean, it's not the most inspiring things to hear in the world, but I mean, it's not the worst either. Christian Fredek from Czech Republic. Might be Christian Fredek. His dad won a silver medal at Euro 96. Hardworking midfielder, very skillful, creative player, great football brain. His rapid rise was slowed by a broken metatarsal. Gained valuable experience in the Czech second division throughout the years. Joined a different top tier side, Slovan Liberec. 7 matches, 1 goal, 1 assist. Not the worst thing in the world in the first tier of Czech Republic, I would say. Next we have Jens Odgaard, who started at Lyngby Boldklub, compared to Marco van Basten, and signed for Inter for 1.5 million euros. Joined Sassuolo from Inter for 5 million in June, but then Sassuolo felt like he needed to go on loan. He went to Hirvenen. A successful loan. Okay, this is going well. So the latest update says he had 2 loan spells, neither getting any great success. So what seemed promising is stalled for now. Let's see. My question is, why have him on loan at an Eredivisie club and then loan him to the Swiss league? Like, why wouldn't you want some sort of continuity with the level you're playing at, like, rather than having the guy move to a new league after just 1 season at a certain league? Now back at the Eredivisie, which it probably should have done from the start. Next up, we have an Icelandic player, Colbain Vincent. He's at Groningen. Let's see how his development went. Joined Brentford in 2018, but then left Brentford to join Borussia Dortmund's reserves. I mean, why? Okay, I know why, but still, he's still at Dortmund in 2020. I mean, he at least has 2 caps for the club and is still playing a lot in the 4th tier of Germany, which I don't know if that's a good thing, but playing in the 3rd tier now? I mean, I'll be honest, there probably isn't much really to say about him. I mean, 4 goals in 28 games, playing in these random positions across the field. Okay, next up we have Mohamed Sultani Mehr from Iran. Plays for the club Saipa and is a midfielder. Had a good presence at the Under-20 World Cup in 2017. Ended up leaving the club he started at in 2020. In 2021, he's still just 22, playing in midfield for Iranian top flight club Zob Ahan. Well, he got some good amount of appearances in the previous season, but this guy so far hasn't really developed much past a squad player for a top flight Iranian club, which is probably what was expected to him to be at the very least at this point. Next up, we have a goalie from Montenegro, Lazar Serovic. There's a lot more keepers on this list compared to the 2021 version. Playing in the top flight of Montenegro, spent time training with Bayern Munich's first team. Okay, he signed for I really dislike when like young prospects sign for Barcelona and only end up just playing for their B team, because the majority of players that play for Barcelona's B team, especially during this time period, don't make it to a high level the majority of the time. He suffered a knee injury in 2019, and he's still with Barcelona B, is barely featured for them, remaining bench so far this season, needs to move on. I understand a lot of players' perspective where it's a dream to play for Barcelona, even if it's for like the B team, it's Barcelona at the end of the day. If you aren't Spanish, or you didn't come from the academy at a younger age, you're not as important to them as the other guys. Still hasn't really played that much for Barcelona B. If he wasn't part of the La Liga side's B team, I would probably put him fell off the face of the earth, like the Mexican player. But it is technically Barcelona at the end of the day, and he did get a lot of minutes in top flight Montenegrin football. Marcelino Namandu from Paraguay. Attacking midfielder who's not afraid to get stuck in. Got promoted to the first team in January in October of 2020. I think a lot of things that might become a common theme here is a lot of these players during years where they might have a bigger breakthrough might have had that stalled for a little bit, as a lot of leagues in like South America, Asia, I assume, Africa, and even smaller parts of Europe probably didn't get as much football played during 2020 because of COVID, obviously. And that might have prevented a bunch of players potentially making a breakthrough or developing a little further. Jose Gomes from Benfica, and has always scored more than 20 goals a season. He did have a loan at Portimonense, but that lasted about 38 minutes. I went to Lechia Gdansk in the Ekstraklasa in Poland. He's left Benfica now, and is currently playing for Bulgarian side Chernomor. Next, we have Vlad Bragamir from Romania, played for Arsenal. Versatile player, can play anywhere across the midfield. The 17-year-old models his game on Toni Kroos and Mesut Ozil. Arsenal offered him a new contract in 2018, but he felt like he needed more first-team football, and he signed for Perugia in Serie B. Didn't go well at all for the former Arsenal Academy graduate, as they got so they nearly got promoted, then they got relegated. Playing for a club in the first tier of Cyprus, it's not Apoel. They are not doing very well to start the season. Only 1 win, 6 games, 1 goal. Next, we have Joel Osoro, who was part of Sunderland. This 14-year-old, during a short stint in athletics, he ran 100 meters in 11.5 seconds. What? Okay, that's incredibly quick, especially for a 14-year-old. Yeah, he made a Premier League debut with Sunderland at age 17 in 117 days. Okay, so he moved to Swansea after Sunderland got relegated for a second time, or at least it was a loan and it did not go as well. And he joined FC Groningen on loan, had a good loan spell there, making 15 appearances, and he joined Serie A side Genoa. Oh, really? He failed to make an impact at Genoa and did not play a single minute for the first team, but moved back to Sweden and Djurgården in February and scored his first goal in September in a derby against Hammarby. I'm sure he can get some consistent minutes there. I mean, he's not scoring a bunch. He's playing on the wing and at striker. Probably a high C tier. Nicolas Chapacase. That's a long name. But he was part of Atletico Madrid B. Okay, so he signed for Parma in 2019. Spent a season on loan at a Portuguese club called Famalicão. Left Atletico Madrid in 2020, signing a 1-year deal with Sassuolo. And after 5 months and just 14 Serie A minutes, he returned back to his homeland of Uruguay to Peñarol. And he got a ruptured anterior cruciate ligament in his left knee. The loan move was cancelled and he returned to Europe for surgery, but the Peñarol president Ignacio Ruglio promised that sooner or later Nico will recover and be back playing for our club. So that's unfortunate though. That really does suck. So 33 out of the 60 players are on the bottom 2 tiers, which is just a significant amount that I wasn't expecting. Now it's time to cover the B tier, and we already have the 2 Argentines and the Armenian. But the rest of the B tier contains some decent players that have some good room to grow and may become good players. That includes Tahith Chong, who's still at Manchester United, but is currently on loan at Birmingham City. Prior to that, he had a less than stellar loan at Werder Bremen. Now, I always bring up these questions in my head when I see players like Tahith move to England at a young age. A lot of the time, players like that rarely succeed to the first team, at least at the top academies. Now, at the same time, you do get great training at great clubs with great players, but I always see a lot of cases where players either stay too long at those clubs and lack first team experience when they eventually leave, or leave at the end of their contracts and still struggle adapting to a new club. Would it have been more worth it if they stayed at their home nation and potentially broke through to their first team? For example, Tahith Chong with Feyenoord. Sometimes you get a Sergi Canos who gets sold to a lower league team and develops into a solid player. Sometimes you even get an Andreas Christensen who's on some incredible form in 2021. However, like top players in general, those are more rare. I can't really blame the players for making these moves though, because you do get incredible training facilities, you do get a lot of things covered for you, even a good wage I would imagine, which you can't really turn down at that young of an age because you never know what's going to happen in your career. I just thought that'd be something I would bring up. If we speak from the English side of it though, Lujan Sterling is having a similar experience as Tahith with a loan to Blackpool from Chelsea. Now you might know about this video about a guy talking about Nigeria's 2015 U17 World Cup victory where 3 guys starred in the tournament. Well, a guy from that team is also on this list, Kingsley Michael. And while this article points out that his dad wanted him to be a military man rather than a footballer, he's currently at Bologna, and while he was breaking through, he unfortunately recently got a fibula fracture, which is going to keep him out until early 2022. Antonis Staryakis is a Greek keeper who got plenty of first team starts with Bulgarian side Slavia Sofia. Then he recently moved to Blackburn and barely plays. Kind of a shame, but he's a goalkeeper and has plenty of time. Serbia had Luka Jovich on one of these lists in the past, and this time they had a guy who kind of has a similar name, Dejan Jovalic, and now he's at the MLS. Now that's no hate at the MLS, but when you see him finally breaking through at Wolfsburg, scoring 17 in 32 matches, it is a little surprising seeing Frankfurt not giving him another chance, but maybe he just felt like he wanted a different challenge. When I saw this Russian name on this list, I wasn't holding my breath, as it wasn't really a name I recognized, but maybe I will soon in the future. He is getting consistent minutes in the top flight of Russia, so one to watch. Like we said earlier, Spain had 3 players on this list, but we'll leave one of them for later. For now, we have Alejandro Pozo and Manu Morlanes. Pozo seemed like a long-term replacement for Jesus Navas, but now on loan at Almeria, they have an option to buy if they get promoted. Morlanes, on the other hand, left Villarreal for newly promoted Espanyol. The midfielder is getting consistent minutes so far. Malingsar has played over 100 matches for Nice under coaches like Farva and Vieira, but once his contract expired in 2020, he decided to go on the Chelsea loan army route, where he was immediately loaned to Porto. So far, he's played 1 Premier League game where they kept a clean sheet against Brentford. However, if it wasn't for Mendy, we'd have a different story. It'll be interesting to see how he shapes up in the next 5 years, especially with how recent loan army players went. Now, we've seen several prospects leave West Ham in the past, and Quina was one of them. Currently at Watford, he's had a loan at Granada and now Fulham, where he's barely played. We finish off with 2 guys from Augsburg. One's on loan there from Brighton as Andy Zakiri tries to continue his development. Weirdly, at the start of this, he was on loan at Juventus. The other Augsburg player is also on loan, but from Hertha Berlin. Midfielder Arnie Mehr. If it wasn't for a long injury list, I'm sure he'd still be at Hertha. Still, he's getting some minutes at Augsburg. 13 players left for S and A tier, and this first one is probably a B+, but due to my bias, I put him in A. Next up, we have a Polish player. Very nice. Camille Grabara. I do remember him. Yep, he was at Liverpool. Played with the academy. There was a lot of promise about him. Did end up getting some loan spells, I believe. I think he's still on loan. He might have left the club, though. Yeah, he left for Copenhagen in the summer after failing to get a competitive game with Liverpool. After leaving Merseyside, he admitted that Jurgen Klopp's smell was getting on his nerves and is thus following in the footsteps of other outspoken Polish goalkeepers such as Tomaszewski, Boruc, and Szczęsny. Okay. Whatever, man. Other than Fabianski, all Polish keepers seem weird. I'm sure he was joking though with that Klopp comment though. He made a transfer to a top club in a good league in Denmark. Is he playing there? Yeah, he's getting consistent matches there. Only conceded 11 goals. This is a pretty good success, I would say. If it wasn't for a doping suspension and an ACL injury, Sekou Koita would be a lot higher up in this list. Looking at his recent season at Salzburg, it's just a shame that he won't see the pitch until 2022. He was in the same U17 World Cup final as Kingsley Michael and some other Nigerians. But for Sekou, if he does regain his form, I'm sure he'll make a big move in no time. Yogo Dalo. Currently at Manchester United as a fullback. He was promising at Porto, signed for Manchester United when Mourinho was at the club. I think he signed for like 15 to 20 million. Never was able to build himself first team place. Wan-Bissaka came in. He moved on loan to AC Milan. I think he did all right there from what I remember, but not good enough where Milan wanted to keep him, and he went back to United, and again, a bench player at Manchester United. Managers highly value his versatility, but that on the other hand also seems to undermine his quest for a starting place. So it's like, okay, we can put you there, but only if we need to. Scamacca is one of 2 Italian players on this list. He's had steady development after leaving PSV. He's not a double-digit goal scorer yet, but he's progressed through Serie B, had a useless loan in the Eredivisie with Pek Zwolle, and has gotten a good amount of Serie A appearances so far with Genoa and now Sassuolo. Usually when you bring up a player and say he's stylistically similar to Messi, you think left-footed. But you also think, I've seen so many players compared to Messi, I've even been compared to Messi. That's not true. However, Abdul Kadir Umar for Trabzonspor is looking real good. He hasn't hit the numbers of the 18/2019 season again, but injuries didn't help with that. Will he make a move abroad, or will he become a legend at his club, who currently are in first place in the league? Lafont's an interesting one, as many have paid attention to him for quite a while. The French goalkeeper moved from Toulouse to Fiorentina. While he did have more success than Luis Fernando, where he did play quite a bit for La Viola. However, a bearded Polishman was ahead of him in development, which led to Lafont going to Nantes. A great thing for him though is not only is he starting there, but he's the captain too. There's a lot of good goalkeepers on this list, but there's still one more that just is the peak. Before we get there though, what do Reese Nelson, Juan Camilo Hernandez, and Raheem Diaz have in common? They like to paint offenses. They're all in the A tier. Reese Nelson is an Arsenal Academy graduate who's had a loan in Germany, which started out well. Unfortunately, it trailed off, and he's really struggled to break through at Arsenal's first team. He is at a make it or break it point with his Arsenal career, as his contract is running out in 2023. Hopefully with a loan at Feyenoord, he will start to prosper and potentially get into the Arsenal squad. Alright, next up we have Juan Camilo Hernandez. Kind of sounds familiar. I feel like he might have played for Osasuna, but I could be completely off. He's wondering whether to give up football altogether. A draw against Leoness had cost his side promotion, a dream had just gone up in smoke, and pressure to study was beginning to pinch. He romped up the second tier, scored 16 goals by mid-September. This guy might have played for Watford, to be honest. Yeah, he did go to Watford, couldn't get a British work permit, so he was shipped on loan to Huesca. Scored 16 goals for Huesca to help them win promotion, and he scored his first top-flight goal at the Camp Nou. Sheesh. He's playing in the Premier League now, scored 49 seconds on his Premier League debut. He struggled to convince the new Colombian manager to get a call for the national team, and this is what he said: "I spent 4 years playing in Spain, but players from Mexico, the MLS, and Colombia get called up. I don't understand what I have to do to get noticed." He hasn't been injured. He's getting consistent minutes in the top flight. To finish off A tier, we have Raheem Diaz. Raheem Diaz from Spain. Okay, he was with Manchester City, ended up moving to Real Madrid. He had a 2-year loan from Madrid. Oh, do they have an option to buy? AC Milan can buy him for 22 million apparently, but Real Madrid would then have a buyback clause of 27 million. He's 23rd on the list, one of the highest we've seen so far. With 4 players left, we finally hit S tier. Looking at the most valuable players born in 1999, which of these players around the top 10 got the initial pick? Next up, we have Alexander Isak from Sweden. Of course, I remember being on a train going back home reading this article about Alexander Isak and how the heir to Zlatan Ibrahimovic's Swedish throne, which he wasn't wrong. Really, he wasn't at all. While his time at AIK, a lot of promise, a lot of clubs interested in him. Dortmund became the team to buy him because, they were developing players relatively well, so it made sense. But unfortunately, this guy could never find a place in the first team. They bought him for 9 million, as we read here. But yeah, it was frustrating time. He ended up getting loaned to the Eredivisie, even with a new manager. Loaned to Willem II, where he actually dominated, scored a lot of goals. Few penalties, but he scored a lot. Moved to Real Sociedad on loan, played really well for them. They ended up buying him out, and yeah, he's becoming a good scorer for them. Had a pretty successful Euros with Sweden. I mean, only 2 goals so far in the league, but his club is performing very well. I'm sure he's gotten some injuries as well, like most of Real Sociedad. Yeah, he got a hamstring injury. Hopefully he can avoid injuries, and he's well on his way to becoming a top striker. He's number 10 on this list, and for me, if you're around the top 10 on this list, you go into S tier. Alright, okay. Kai Havertz, easy. When we recognize someone like Kai Havertz, we just go to the most valuable list and see him at number 2. What's more to say? He was awarded the Fritz Walter Silver Medal as the second best youngster at his level. I mean, I just remember reports of him. He literally missed Champions League games because he had to do school exams because he was doing so well at such a young age. He's getting starts for Chelsea, scored in the Champions League final. He's getting starts for Germany. Still a whole bunch of future left for him. Lives to live. Very nice. Very nice. Of course, on the list of most valuable players born in 1999. Pretty simple here. Of course, he was part of the Ajax side that made the Champions League semifinals. Is at Juventus and has been developing relatively well. I have a feeling I know who the guy is. Gianluigi Donnarumma. Easy. At the beginning of the article, it did say that he was in here, so obviously we knew we were going to get some sort of S-tier player in here. He made his debut for Italy at age 17 and 189 days. Youngest to start a top-flight game at 16 years and 8 months. Buffon said he can have an extraordinary career. He's not wrong. Some problems over the years. There was concerns whether he was going to leave the club, stay at the club, got a big contract at AC Milan, performed really well in the 2020-21 season, and then left on a free when he said he loved AC Milan. A lot of controversy about this guy's loyalty and whether he actually likes the club or whether he's a mercenary. Ended up going to PSG on a free transfer. Plays in the Champions League games so far. He's not going to get consistent minutes yet, as they do have Keylor Navas at PSG, but you helped Italy win Euro 2021 and actually won the player of the tournament, which was a little confusing. I thought there was better choices, but he was still fantastic. And he was a hero in the Euro 2020 final, making some big saves in that penalty shootout. So after 60 players, nearly 4 hours of recording a tier list, and even more time writing stuff to read out, we have finally finished the best Wonderkids of 2016, according to The Guardian. While the list doesn't look as good as 2015's, I think there's a lot of intriguing players here. Of course, this will be a yearly thing, so 2017's won't be looked at until 2022. However, alongside these lists, The Guardian have also released the Premier League version of it, so we might as well get started with that. Oh gosh, how am I supposed to make videos?